All right, so it is 1:02 and we are going to get this kick-started, our presentation here. My name is Marla Corper and I am SEI's Development Director, and today I am your host of this webinar. So thank you so much for joining us and coming to learn more about the basics of solar and how both solar and energy efficiency can contribute to economic recovery. Today we have three presenters with us. This is a co-sponsored webinar with the Colorado Energy Office. We're going to get started off with Mary Marshall. She is the Solar Forward Program Manager at Solar Energy International. And then we're going to turn it over to Michael Turner. He is the Director of the Building Innovation and Energy Finance Unit at the Colorado Energy Office. And then finally, we're going to have Delynn Southern, and she is our Technical Specialist at the Colorado Energy Office. I'm going to start with some logistics so that we're all on the same page. Throughout this presentation, you are going to be on mute and you're not going to have video. So the way that we're going to communicate is through the Q&A icon that you can find at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Please, any questions you have, enter them into the Q&A, and at the end of the presentations, we're going to have an open forum where we'll go over questions and have a discussion. If you have any technical issues, please press the raise hand button. That will be an indicator to me that we have an issue to resolve, and you and I will work on that one-on-one to resolve that issue. And finally, the chat is going to be used solely for informal conversations. So we invite you to interact with other folks that are joining us here, but know that all questions are going to be fielded through the Q&A portion of this presentation. I'm going to get us started by telling you a bit about Solar Energy International. So here at Solar Energy International, we envision a world powered by renewable energy. We work towards that vision by training the global solar energy workforce. We've been doing this for 29 years, and from that, we have over 76,000 alumni that are working in the solar field. Of these alumni, they have contributed to over 10% of the installed solar across the world, so the total capacity that's on Earth to date. And as we like to say, we're just getting started. We do this through our headquarters located in Paonia, Colorado. That's where I'm coming from today. And we also have hands-on training centers in Costa Rica that serves Latin America and in Oman that serves the Middle East. We offer hands-on training, in-person training, and online training to folks all over the world, including our alumni from 145 countries. If you're interested in joining us as a student or a supporter, I encourage you to learn more by going to solarenergy.org, by giving us a call at 970-527-7657, or sending us an email at sei@solarenergy.org. We would love to have the opportunity to engage with you. Today at this webinar, we're going to have our three experts talking about the basics of solar and common questions and concerns you may have as you're considering going solar, and then also thinking about solar and energy efficiency and how the two can aid in economic recovery. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to our first presenter, Mary Marshall, and she's going to get us started.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Mary Marshall, and I am a program manager at Solar Energy International for a program called Solar Forward. And before we get started with the poll, so the purpose of this webinar today is we really wanted to put something on to support the solar energy workforce in Colorado. And we wanted to do this by providing an educational resource to participants of this webinar who are interested in going solar, to talk about the benefits of going solar, Solar 101, and then specific programs in Colorado. So we have a wide audience from all different areas of the sustainability industry. Some people in on this webinar today are interested solar customers. Some folks here today are community leaders, and other folks here work at solar installation companies. So we have information that might be a little bit in the weeds and detailed, and we have some other information that might be a bit more basic for some folks. So we really hope that everyone gets something out of this webinar. We really appreciate you being here, and we really welcome your feedback. So we'll start things off with a poll. So what are your biggest obstacles in going solar? Or what are your constituencies' biggest obstacles in going solar, or your potential customers' biggest obstacles? Great, so I'm just going to share the results right here. It looks like we have some financing, the time it takes, roof age or shading, and other. We are going to cover all of these topics in our presentation today. Great. So today we are going to start off with a Solar 101 vocab crash course. Then we're going to cover some utility bill basics and solar incentives. And then we'll talk a little bit about what is Solar Forward, SEI's technical consulting program that helps grow solar markets in rural communities across Colorado. So these are just a few basic selling points for your community on why people might be interested in going solar or getting a solar energy system. The first being it is renewable, abundant energy. So every hour the sun radiates more energy onto the earth than the entire human population could use. And let's take advantage of this infinite resource as opposed to finite energy resources. Additionally, energy independence. Solar offers a locally based option to decrease our dependence on energy that is provided by companies from far away. So a lot of us in Colorado, our utility is a rural electric cooperative that gets their energy from a wholesale electricity supplier that is located far away. By producing your own energy and having community members have more solar systems, you are then, instead of spending that money on your utility bill that's going to that wholesale electricity supplier, that's money staying in the community that needs it the most. It's helping to contribute to the local economy. It's a wise investment. So on average for a 5-kilowatt solar system, you will save over $1,000 each year on your electricity bill. This will only improve as electricity rates on average rise about 4% per year in the US. It prevents greenhouse gases, so it's a clean source of energy. And it's right now is a perfect time to go solar because there is an income tax credit, a federal ITC that is slated to decrease again in 2021. And we will talk about that a little bit later on. So this is just a visual about that financial aspect that I mentioned in the slide before this. So like I just said before, without a solar system, you would pay about $1,000 on average every year for your utility bill. And this graph specifically is showing over 25 years, and it's not taking into account the 4% average increase of rising utility rates. So say you pay $12,900 for your solar system in year one, and you're paying $50 each year in fixed rates, with the savings of $950 per year. So after your break-even point, you are actually earning rather than saving. So now we're gonna cover some basic solar vocab words. A solar electric system uses photovoltaic panels to generate electricity that can be used throughout your home or business. Already I've been using solar and PV interchangeably, and what PV is, it just stands for photovoltaic, and the photovoltaic effect is that magic that happens inside of the solar panel that results in electricity that we can use eventually. So it's totally okay to use those terms interchangeably. Then in this presentation, we're going to be talking about grid-tied solar systems. These are solar systems on your home that are connected to your utility grid, and the production of those systems and your own consumption is measured through a meter. So net metered systems track what you consume minus what you produce, and you are charged for your net energy use. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about off-grid systems that store power in batteries. So this is a basic schematic, just a diagram of system components here of a grid-tied system. It is it's important to note here that this is a grid-tied system, and it starts over here with the PV array. That's where the energy generation happens. It goes here through an inverter, which, to put simply, just converts that into energy that we can use to power the loads in our home. This is the service panel right here. The meter is used to track production and consumption, and it's connected to the utility grid. So if the utility grid, if power goes out, it's important to note that your power will also go out in your home. That is to protect the linemen and women working on the utility grid in case of an outage, so there is not power rolling back onto the grid. If you are in an area where your potential solar customers, constituency, or you are a potential solar customer that may be interested in more resiliency, you can look at a battery-based or off-grid system. So this diagram shows a PV array, a charge controller, that's really just that gatekeeper in between the PV array and the battery bank. Then going to the inverter to convert that into energy that we can consume. This is an off-grid system, but it's important to note that you can also have a grid-tied system with battery backup. So now we're going to jump into our second poll. What type of solar system are you considering, or what type of solar system are potential solar customers in your area or your constituency interested in? Great, so we have some varied interest across the board. It's really interesting to see how battery-based systems are really becoming, you know, a really big topic that residential homeowners are interested in learning about, especially a lot of rural communities that we work in. People are really interested in learning about ways that they can be more resilient. So now, before we dive into some utility bill basics, we are going to talk about power versus energy. So power is the instantaneous rate of electrical consumption or generation measured in watts, and energy is power consumed or produced over a time period measured in watt hours. So we have here two quick examples, one representing consumption and one representing generation. So we have a light bulb rated at 75 watts. Over 5 hours, that would be 375 watt hours consumed. And then we have a PV module rated at 250 watts. Over 6 peak sun hours, it would produce 1,500 watt hours. So now we're going to talk a little bit about utility bill rates and fees. On your utility bill, you will see both some variable charges that can be offset by your PV system, and then you will also see some fixed charges that your PV system usually can't offset, and those include service or connection fees, overhead costs, maybe a monthly minimum charge. On the other hand, variable charges can typically be offset by PV. And those include your cost of energy, transmission costs, and even in some cases, demand charges. So your cost of energy can be on different rate plans, and it's varied on what your utility has to offer. So the common rate plans that we see here in the US are flat, tiered, seasonal, and time of use. So a flat rate plan is when energy is charged at just a flat rate per kilowatt hour. Pretty common. A tiered rate plan is the tiered rate plan is either the more you use, the more you pay, or sometimes the more you use, the less you pay. So it would be more common to see a residential rate plan where the more you use, the more you pay, whereas a commercial rate plan might have the more you use, the less you pay. Then we also have a seasonal rate plan where in seasons of higher demand, you will pay more. That will vary on region. And then time of use, which is during peak periods, electricity will cost more. And then those peak periods would be defined by your utility. So then I'll just briefly talk about demand charges. So demand charges are based on peak power demand and not consumption. So if you think about demand charges like a speedometer, like a needle on a speedometer, if your demand reaches 50 kilowatts and stays there for 15 minutes, the meter needle would remain at 50 kilowatts, unless or until your demand exceeds that level. If your demand reaches 55 kilowatts and stays there for 15 minutes, the needle will then stay at 55. The new index point is maintained even when you are using less, and the meter reader comes to record the demand and then resets the meter back to zero. So it's important to be aware of the different rate plans out there because in some instances, your utility will let you choose a rate plan and you might want to choose something that's more financially viable for your situation. For example, a tiered rate plan would be a good application for a PV system. So how is this PV production counted? We talked a little bit before about grid tied and net metering. That could be either via a single meter, which is one bidirectional meter that is located in your solar, in the components of that solar system we looked at earlier. And when your PV system is overproducing, what you are not, and your loads aren't using all of that energy that PV system is creating, it is then going to essentially roll back to the grid. If your PV system isn't producing enough for your home to use, you will then have energy rolling back from the grid to your home. This is tracked by a single meter, and again, you pay the net. A dual meter is where you have 1 meter for PV production and 1 meter for household consumption, and you're once again paying the net. And then a self-consumption is, we talked about before, like an energy storage system. So just a little reminder of where that meter is in the system. You have an example of a setup here with a bidirectional meter located in between that AC service panel and the utility grid. And you can see these arrows here representing the flow of electricity. So we're talking a lot about PV production and about demand and about our net demand. So I wanted to provide a quick visual example here about what your energy consumption and production would look like throughout the day in a household. So you can see here that the blue represents your total demand, the green represents net demand, and yellow represents your PV production. We have in the middle here a typical peak period for when the sun's shining and your PV system will be producing the most. And as you can see, it doesn't necessarily align with your demand. We wake up in the morning and we turn on some appliances, our lights, maybe we'll leave for work during the day, and then we'll come home and we'll use appliances again and perhaps a TV when we're not all working from home. And you can see that even though the PV production is not during your peak consumption, you're still only going to pay that net. And it sort of offsets that, so to speak. So when we look at this in an annual context, this is an example from Chicago, Illinois, where unlike Colorado, where I'm based right now, in the winter, it is cloudy and the PV system might not produce as much as it usually does in the summer. So you can see here in this annual example with blue representing your household's consumption and orange representing your PV production, there are times where you're going to be producing more than you consume, and there are times where you will be consuming more than you produce, but annually it averages out to about 85% of that usage offset from the system. So now we're going to talk a little bit about types of PV incentives. You have performance-based incentives that are incentives paid based on your system production over time. And this is what we were talking about before with net metering. So utilities have different net metering policies. So if you are overproducing and pushing more energy back onto the grid than you are currently using, your utility might pay you in the form of an incentive for what you're producing. We have capacity-based incentives, which are cash incentives based on your installed system size. So an example of this is some utilities might actually give you some sort of incentive or rebate based on just installing a PV system, and that would be according to the size of that system. And then finally, we have cost-based incentives. The federal tax credit is a really good example, but there can be local, state, and even national cost-based incentives, and this varies by location. So the US has a federal tax credit that was 30% in 2019 and has been gradually tapering, but this would be a cost-based incentive, 30% off of your system. Right now it's 26 and next year it'll be 22, but it's important when you are marketing solar systems and sharing about how people should take advantage of this ITC. Not everybody is eligible for this. So it is based on if you're paying federal income taxes, and if you're not paying taxes, you won't be eligible. So it's always important to refer people to a tax professional. So finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about Solar Energy International Solar Forward Program. This program leverages the technical expertise of SEI as an industry-leading solar training facility, and it helps rural communities meet local sustainability goals, achieve economic development benefits that come along with growing a solar market, and of course, creating jobs through having more solar adoption. So the idea of this program came about because there was a need in rural communities in the state to support this transition to a more renewable energy powered future and the benefits that come along with that. So we talked about local economic resiliency, local jobs, and everything that comes along with the benefits of a solar market. So how this program works is that the Solar Forward program will partner with a nonprofit or a government department or a community group on the ground in a community, and we provide free technical consulting on how to implement an educational outreach campaign aimed at kickstarting a solar market. This campaign involves engaging local stakeholders, partnering with local installers, and other community groups to support this campaign. You'll have a technical advisor to help you launch this program, and you will also have access to the Solar Forward Toolkit, which is compiled by industry experts to make it easy for you to launch this initiative. It contains technical tools, documents, and a proven model that we've used in communities across Colorado. Along with this program, we utilize SEI's workforce development efforts. So participants will get free SEI training. We have scholarships available through the program if needed for local installers. And we also engage our professional spin-off, SEI Professional Services, to ensure that all systems installed in this program are of industry quality and standards. So the impact to date is that this program has empowered community groups on the ground to work with installers to install 1.5 megawatts of new installed solar across Colorado. That's over 200 total new PV systems, nearly 24 new jobs across multiple counties, and hundreds educated on the benefits of solar energy and energy efficiency. Just a little bit more about some of the educational tools you saw today. Some of the visuals and some of the different lessons that we just touched on today are taken from SEI's classes. So our PV 101 dives much deeper into system components and utility bills. Our RE 100 is a free class online. And additionally, a lot of the tools you saw in the presentation today are some of the things that we include in the Solar Forward program. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. We're going to pass it off to the Colorado Energy Office. My name's Mary, and please send me an email if you want to learn anything else about the Solar Forward program or any of the lessons that you saw today.
Great. Thank you, Mary. This is Michael Turner with the Colorado Energy Office, and I'm going to pull up my screen here. And I think there we have it. Well, great. You know, I certainly appreciate the collaboration with SEI and look forward to more projects together. I think there's a lot of great synergies between our two organizations. So hopefully this is one of many webinars and community projects that we work on together. I think that, you know, we've long known the benefits of energy efficiency and renewable energy projects in terms of economic and environmental benefits. I think during these times, these benefits are even more acute as we think about how to apply them to the economic recovery of our state. The Energy Office has had a variety of different energy efficiency programs over the years with some renewable energy components, and I think we're finding a growing recognition that our programs can help with also the identification and financing of renewable energy projects and the support of that industry. So I'm pretty excited to talk to you today about some of the programs that we have at the Energy Office. We're going to cover a lot of ground, so consider this just a bit of a primer, and we're here for further conversations, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. So the first question here is just to get a sense of, are you familiar with CEO's energy projects, programs, and if so, which ones? And if you wouldn't mind, maybe just for those that did say yes, maybe throwing in the chat which ones you're familiar with. It'll give us a better idea of maybe where to take the conversation. Great. And it looks about, okay, so a lot of opportunity to kind of share the breadth of work that, that we work on here at the Energy Office. Wanted to give everyone just a broad overview of what we do at the CO. We work to reduce greenhouse gas emission and consumer energy costs by advancing clean energy, energy efficiency, and zero emission vehicles. So even from this chart, you can see we cover a lot of ground. We have a weatherization assistance program, transportation fuels and technology. We have intervening power at the Public Utility Commission. We work on energy policy. And then we have the building innovation and energy finance. So we have a lot of different programs, tools for communities, for businesses, for residential homeowners. And, you know, we're looking to engage with our communities and with Coloradans. So, you know, I'm not going to be able to touch on everything, even within our division. But if there is, you know, something that you'd like more information on, please don't hesitate to reach out. So even within buildings and finance, I'm not going to be able to cover all of these, but I did want to give our audience an idea of all of the different sectors that we work in. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into one of our commercial programs, the agricultural energy efficiency, and then also our Renew low interest loan program for residential homeowners. And then I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Delyn to dig a little bit deeper into energy performance contracting. But you can start to appreciate, we work with schools, we work with public sector clients, we work with commercial space with Colorado Property Assessed Clean Energy. We have a low interest loan program. We just launched one of the first state sponsored cannabis pilot programs in the country. We have an industrial program. We're always looking at what's the forefront, the next sort of emerging market and technology, whether it be blockchain or agrivoltaics, solar on agricultural land. So we cover a lot of ground. And so, you know, I hope this just gives you a flavor of some of the work that we do. And in my description of these programs, I think you get an idea of how we apply technical and financial support to actually get some of these renewable energy projects implemented. And then lastly, I'm going to just give a sneak preview to a data visualization project that our office is working on to help facilitate our resources and provide more education to our communities. The second question I'd like to pose is renewable energy a priority for you or your community? And are you interested in residential or commercial solar financing? I'll give this just a second longer. All right, so yes, and a little bit more on the residential side, which is great because we're going to cover both residential and commercial. So that's helpful for me. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is I think that the significance of having an administration that is making renewable energy and climate change and greenhouse gas emission reductions a priority for their administration. So as you can see, one of the 4 pillars of Governor Polis's administration is to set Colorado on a pathway to 100% renewable energy by 2040. And then last year, we actually set in state statute some greenhouse gas goals for the state. I think this demonstrates that we have support all the way to the governor's office, and we're working on the ground to design programs to help us get closer to these goals. And I think it is very significant to have that type of leadership in driving our work. I'm going to start off talking briefly about our statewide agricultural energy efficiency program. This may or may not apply to you. I think it's good knowledge to have that it's available, that this could be a resource for your community. I also think it's a very good demonstration of how we're approaching energy efficiency and renewable energy. And what I mean by that is with this program in particular, we've done our market research, we've identified what the opportunities are, then how do we actually get projects implemented? How do we support Coloradans and businesses and homeowners in actually getting those projects implemented? One of the first ways in this program is providing a free energy audit, a free preliminary renewable energy assessment, and then the technical support. So we have energy coaches that will sit down, help prioritize projects, figure out return on investment, and then figure out what's the next step. How do we actually get these projects financed? And the phase 2 of the ag program for me is really kind of the linchpin in the success of this. It's figuring out, putting together a financial toolkit of funds to actually finance these projects. To date, we've been able to leverage over $3 million from our partners at the Colorado Department of Agriculture, USDA, utility rebates, and then our office offers some small incentives as well. In addition to that, the energy coach for this program will apply for the funds, work to find vendors to implement those projects, and then verify that they were installed correctly. This is a little bit deeper of a dive of what's kind of contained in that energy audit report, identifying the conservation practices for energy efficiency and renewable energy. And then we're actually, again, doing those preliminary renewable energy assessments for solar thermal, solar PV, and ground source heat pumps. And we actually have funds to actually pay for feasibility studies for those renewable energy projects as well. And then that energy coaching, which I think is just absolutely instrumental in terms of turning an audit into an actual project. We don't want to finance or fund a bunch of audits that just sit on the shelf. So we dedicated a lot of time and resources and talent to really figuring out how to get those projects paid for that work for our participants. This gives you a flavor of some of the funding that we put together, something that we're constantly developing. It's and figuring out what additional financial resources we can use for the ag space. But again, this can be applied to some of our other programs. And we're looking for grants and loans. And also, I think we also have the authority to create new programs if we don't already. So we're also looking at what's going on around the country and around the world, if there are other sort of innovative financing tools that can be applied here in Colorado. To date, we've achieved over 300 audits, leveraged $3 million, saved a lot of energy, but also identified a lot of projects in these audit reports. So it gives us further projects to work on and more work to do with our participants. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit and talk about our residential energy upgrade loan. I think this is an incredible tool for residential homeowners to actually finance solar energy projects. It's a fixed low interest rate and long-term loan for homeowners to make those upgrades for both energy efficiency projects and solar. It's available statewide, and we work with a variety of different local lenders. We're constantly bringing on new lenders for this program to strengthen the outreach component of that. You can finance a lot of different energy efficiency projects and solar. We've had a lot of interest actually in solar projects, and so I think this couples nicely with what SEI is working on with their Solarize program. Just to give you a little bit of insight into what we've been able to achieve to date, we've had the program around for, I think, just under 3 years, but we've been able to install 4.3 megawatts of solar through the Renew program, nearly $14 million in solar financing. And we're working all over the state with pretty much every project or program that I discussed earlier. we're working in all the counties around the state. And this is sort of some more information about what that financing actually looks like. Interest rates starting as low as 2.75, and really pretty nominal loan fees and no dealer fees, which I think makes this a very attractive financing tool for solar and energy efficiency for homeowners. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we are excited to be launching a new website at the end of this month. This is really a tool to provide more information to communities and homeowners, and to figure out, what renewable energy or climate goals counties have committed to. We're committed to promoting and educating communities on what they've committed to and sharing that information. And then I put my colleague Christine Berg's information down here. I think it's very significant that our office hired a senior policy advisor for local government. Christine recently served for 5 years as the mayor of Lafayette, Colorado. And I think she really understands the important role cities and counties have in making the transition towards a clean energy economy. So I wanted to put her information up there. She's a great resource and advocate for local government, and look forward to sharing this information with our stakeholders and Coloradans moving forward. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Delynn for a dive of EPC. But again, look forward to questions on this webinar, and certainly hearing from any attendees moving forward on all the programs that we have.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Delynn. I'm a technical specialist at the Colorado Energy Office. Michael provided a good review of our office's technical and financial assistance programs, and so we just wanted to take a bit more of your time to dive deeper into our energy performance contracting program, which has been a useful tool for the implementation of solar projects in Colorado. Before we begin, we have a question to kind of gauge who our listeners are today. So are you or your organization a public entity or special district? Yes or no? Oh, let's see. Okay, well, we'll move on. Just some background on that question is the Energy Performance Contracting Program is designed for public entities and special districts in Colorado. The model, however, is one that can be used for the private commercial sector as well. So still pay attention. You'll get some good stuff out of the presentation. Okay, so what is energy performance contracting? We like to refer to it as EPC. At its core, EPC is a financing and contracting tool that allows entities to use cost savings from facility improvements to fund the capital projects. The Energy Office has offered the EPC program for over 20 years in Colorado, and we've helped communities identify 20 million in cost savings while reducing the need for 200 million units of energy. Our office implements the EPC program as a public-private partnership. This is a collaboration between a public entity and a private sector company that can be used to finance in both projects. In Colorado, our private sector consists of our pre-qualified energy service companies, which we refer to as ESCOs, as well as our financial firms or lenders. So think, banks, etc. Our public sector clients are counties, municipalities, schools, state agencies, as well as special districts. And then the Energy Office provides the framework for the program. We offer contract support, document review, along with engineering and technical guidance throughout the life cycle of the project. This partnership, which we call a P3, the P3 model creates a partnership that optimizes cost, quality, and ROI. We're fortunate that here in Colorado, we do have a great team of private sector partners that work closely with us, as well as our public stakeholders. The EPC program requires our pre-qualified ESCOs to go through a fairly rigorous application process in order to be on this list. We currently have 12 skilled engineering firms in the program, and they're able to provide our clients with workable energy solutions and projects. Additionally, you'll see that our office has the support of a number of industry stakeholders that also advocate for our programs and our mission. So here I'll just go ahead and highlight some of the main benefits of using the EPC program model for project implementation. The first, that single procurement contract. So our program is structured in a way that looks at opportunities holistically and provides a single procurement contract instead of a piecemeal approach. So essentially the ESCO will serve as a general contractor for multiple aspects of a capital improvement project. Next, as required by statute, our firms are required to present you a project that is at a minimum cash flow neutral. The next is this, what we call a guarantee. So our firms guarantee that the savings identified in the report will happen. If for whatever reason, the entity isn't saving what they said they would, the ESCO would cover any shortfall. This is a rare thing, but it is kind of an extra added assurance, especially when you're, either asking your community for budget approval or, accessing financing. Another great point is that the EPC program does promote a local workforce. Our program really supports that 80% in Colorado workforce role. Our firms will use local subcontractors when possible and if requested by the client. They're very interested in kind of putting some of that investment back into the community in terms of, economic benefits. And then lastly, our office provides no cost support throughout the life cycle of the project. So this includes contract guidance as well as that technical review I mentioned earlier. In addition, our ESCOs are required to use all of our state-approved contracts as well as our process. All right, so here's another question to kind of get your brains thinking. Should a rooftop solar array be considered on a roof that is 20 years old? Okay, so, it looks like most of you answered that correctly. Give it a sec. Okay, so this question was really asked so we could highlight how the Energy Office's technical team, as well as our ESCO partners, review project opportunities from a comprehensive angle. So focusing on one improvement only may not be the best solution for a building as a whole. In this example, a roof's life expectancy is about 20 to 25 years. So if a client chose to put a solar system on this roof, they would likely have to remove the entire system in a few years, and then have to remount the system, which they would be incurring additional costs down the road. A benefit of our program is our technical team would have flagged this for our clients and worked with our ESCO partners to develop an alternative solution that's in the best benefit for the client. EPC is a great tool. It's not necessarily the right fit for all projects. I think it's important to know what factors make it a good approach for implementation. We kind of like to think about it like this. Let's say that you're a public entity with either high utility costs, maybe you have capital improvement needs, budget constraints, or community sustainability or climate action goals. The EPC program helps you identify capital improvement and cost saving opportunities. It provides solutions for capital and financing, and all of this is to help you achieve your goals and needs. So how do we do this? As mentioned previously, EPC allows entities to reallocate those cost savings from energy efficiency improvements and use those to repay the cost of the project over the contract term. So for example, you have this first column, that's your existing operating expense. So using the EPC program process, an ESCO is selected, and this top portion shows the facility energy improvements that also provide those operating cost savings. The ESCO uses these measures and these savings to create a cash flow neutral project for the client, and these savings are actually used to access financing. A great point, as you'll see right here, is if you are going after perhaps a Department of Local Affairs grant, etc., the financing access through these savings can be used as part of that grant match. So that's been a great benefit for a lot of our public entities in Colorado. So next, you'll see how these savings are now used as that payment during the financing period. You'll notice that your overall annual operating costs have actually decreased. And this is from all those improvements that have been implemented. And then lastly, after repayment, the operating savings from all those shiny new equipment you just got are yours for the remainder of that product's life. And I'll quickly go through this. The energy performance contracting program consists of 5 major steps that you'll see. That first step, this is just working with our office or perhaps an energy service company just to determine if there's interest in pursuing a facility improvement process or project. This next step is where we begin evaluating your needs, savings potential. An ESCO is selected during this stage, and depending on your procurement, this could be in the form of an RFP solicitation or simply a sole source where going out to bid is not required. Next step, step 3. So after that ESCO is selected, the client may choose to enter into an investment grade audit contract with the firm. This is that detailed assessment and is used to create the scope of work and the proposal. The firms will actually work with you to identify your goals, and they also help you identify funding streams. So that includes capital budget, grants, loans, as well as utility incentives. So if the client agrees to move forward, you enter into that implementation phase. This is the energy performance contract in its truest form. And this is where they show up to your facility, boots on the ground, get things rolling. And then step 5, after the project is completed, we do a measurement and verification process. This is like checks and balances. The ESCO comes annually. They'll present performance data on the installed project. And this will show the client that the measures implemented are actually producing as described. So as part of state statute in Colorado, we require 3 years of M&V. And again, this is that added assurance for our clients. So here we just have, some measures specific to energy efficiency that an ESCO could identify during that investment grade audit. Lighting upgrades, boilers, pumps, as well as building automation systems. Additionally, our program does encourage the implementation of electrification measures. What I mean by that are solar arrays, electric charging stations, geothermal systems, or any associated utility rate improvement. And to go a bit deeper into the renewable energy, so renewable energy is not technically an energy efficiency measure, and so savings are not seen through reduced energy use, but rather through avoided costs. So these two ownership models are commonly used in EPC projects that include a renewable energy component. That first one, the on-balance sheet model, allows the savings to be realized through reducing the amount of power needed to be purchased from the utility. And that PPA model allows the savings to be realized through the lower utility rate costs that you negotiated with the PPA provider. So borrowing from that earlier EPC financing graph I showed, renewable energy does follow a similar structure. This first column is your current energy cost. This top red line is your building's energy requirements. By supplementing this with renewable energy, your purchase utility costs drop and then the savings are realized. It's this difference right here. So these savings can be used alongside with savings from other energy efficiency measures to buy down the cost of the project and lower the payback. So to put this into a little bit of perspective, here's a case study from a recent client, the town of Walden. They used the EPC program as a way to install a 75 kilowatt floating solar array on one of their wastewater treatment ponds. This system is now providing 100% of that facility's energy needs. Their ESCO was also able to secure over $200,000 in grants and incentives to offset the project cost. And then another example, I know that Mary mentioned Gunnison County earlier. They used the EPC program to implement a 331 kilowatt solar array and coupled it with a full-scale LED lighting upgrade. So not only did the efficiency work lower their energy use requirements, they brought that base load down. The solar array was used to provide power for their facilities. And they're saving over $150,000 in utility costs annually. And then lastly, this is just highlight some of the success of our program. We've worked with many clients throughout Colorado. We've saved almost 24 million for Colorado jurisdictions, and we've put almost 586 million back into community through those facility improvements. Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Delynn, Michael, and Mary. My name is Marla Corper, and I'm SEI's Development Director, if you didn't get that at the beginning of this presentation. I want to acknowledge it's 2 o'clock, so if you have to hop off, we are going to send a recorded version of this presentation so you can see your questions answered. But we are going to take just an additional 5 to 10 minutes here to answer a few questions we have for the presenters, and then we will bid adieu until next time. So I'm going to start off with a question for Mary. We got a question from Sam about how does my community get involved with Solar Forward?
So if your community is interested in getting involved with Solar Forward, first I would recommend reaching out to me over email, mary@solarenergy.org. It's going to be included in the recording on this as well. And at that point, we can have a conversation about if you're a part of a nonprofit or a community group who would like to be a coordinator on the ground to receive these resources through the program. And if you're not currently a member of a group, we can have a conversation about how we can find a group that can host the program, evaluate stakeholders on the ground, and see the best avenue moving forward. So we love to connect with new partners. So I definitely recommend spreading the word and reaching out. Thanks for the question.
Great. All right, this question is from Michael from Bryce. What are the qualifications for someone to participate in the AGEE program?
Yeah, great question. I wrote a more detailed response here, but it's basically, we work with pretty much every facet of the ag sector, save for the cannabis program or the cannabis industry. And that's because consideration of our federal partners, and we have a different dedicated cannabis program there. And we're also asking that the participants have a minimum energy bill of $4,800 a year of on-farm energy costs. And that's really, making sure that we're not spending all of our resources on hobby farms, but these are dedicated ag producers. Yeah.
Great. And the follow-up question that Michael was then does that mean that the state will help those members secure funds like USDA REAP?
Yep, exactly. The intent of this program is to help secure funds from programs like there's the REAP, Renewable Energy for America program, EQIP, Environmental Quality Improvement Program, in addition to some funds from the Department of Agriculture through their Acre 3 program, and then CPACE and utility incentives. You get the idea. We try to have a pretty big toolbox of financing for our participants.
Great, thanks, Michael. And then finally, this question is for Delynn. It's from Catherine, and she wants to know, what are the minimum financing and transaction amounts for the performance contracting program?
So great question. We don't have set minimums. We do kind of have a rule of thumb for our state program. So we find that the projects that are most attractive to financiers have a project value over $500,000. So it is some of those larger projects.
Great.
And then the financing rates are, we've seen them below 3%. So it works out pretty well.
Awesome. And Delynn, I think this follow-up question goes to the 500,000. What ideas does the Colorado Energy Office have to extend this program to the public utilities that are in entities that are in rural Colorado that may not be able to hit that $500,000 threshold?
Sure. So this has been a conversation lately. We have been trying to kind of see what programs may be a light version of the EPC program that does, fill that gap. Right now, we do have some other rural clients that have been able to kind of pool their projects with maybe the town next over or something, and they kind of get that project value up, get that lower financing, and they kind of split apart from that point. Good question.
Wonderful. So if rural entities want to learn more, is the best first stop to get in contact with you and figure out how they can work together?
Yep. Sounds good. Yeah.
Wonderful. Great. Well, again, we want to be mindful of your time, so we are going to wrap this up. I want to say a huge thank you to the Colorado Energy Office and to each of our presenters, Delynn, Michael, and Mary, for sharing this information with us. We're really grateful at SEI for our partnership with Colorado Energy Office, and like to think, as Michael said earlier, that we're just getting started. So stay in tune for more webinars coming as part of our collaboration. If you want to learn more about SEI, or if you want to sign up for some of our courses, again, I encourage you to go to solarenergy.org. You can give us a call at 970-527-7657, or you can email us at sei@solarenergy.org. Thanks so much and have a great day.